From the harbor to the high rise, from the boardroom to the beeline. Pull a seat for some daylight. Kenji on the headline. Hey! East Coast insights talk that truth. Big city questions searching for proof. Stories from the ground, from the booth to the roof. East Coast insights, hey! Right here with you. East Coast insights talk that truth. Big city questions searching for proof.
Yeehaw! Back again. What's up? Beautiful Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? East Coast Insights. Man, Suno, AI music. It's going to take all our jobs. I'm kidding. Funny about that. I know a few musical producers that are working more with all this AI stuff. Their clients are just producing more music. So things are shifting, things are changing. Thanks so much again for joining me today. East Coast Insights, Kenji Shimada here. I am your host. And today is going to be Rory Orr will be joining me again today. Rory is an investor principal in Bitcoin and digital asset strategies, but he's also has gone deep dive into the commodities markets and All Code, which is his platform that's coming soon. We'll be discussing commodities and education about some of those larger macro trends and what they mean. A person like myself, I need those educational bits and pieces for myself. So I'm pretty excited to have Rory on today. And we're just going to step back a little bit and just have a look at what's going on in the larger scope. And none of this is financial advice. None of this is the ultimate truth of all things. This is just my questions, Rory's perspectives on how he's seeing things, what's going on in the world. How does that impact, what's going on with our currencies, with what's inflation, what's happening with interest rates? What does it mean for how we could potentially invest our money and shift our assets into, I guess, pathways that can still be beneficial to us, even when markets go through transitions or shifts and tides and cycles. So looking forward to the conversation today. And without further ado, I'm going to be bringing on Mr. Rory Orr. Welcome to
the
show,
bud.
Mate.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Thanks for having me again. Pretty good intro tune, that one, actually. Had me bopping away a bit.
Oh, man. I know Jared Campbell, shout out there from Auto Guru at the moment. It's crazy because Jared was like, hey, man, you should have like an intro track to your show. And I was like, yeah, I get there. Like, I write music as well. I was like, maybe later. Not only was it like 3 minutes afterwards, he sent me a track.
Wow. And it was epic straight away.
I was like, what in the... Because I hadn't gone down the whole AI music pathway. And I was like, whoa, I know a lot of people have, but there was... blew me away for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, the AI, that angle, that'll come back in our conversation, I'm sure, when we get into the commodities and the energy side of things. So, yeah, all ties back together, doesn't it?
For sure, man. For sure. Now, I think today, to kick it off, I know that... So, first of all, maybe you could just give us a quick overview. I know we spoke last time, but what All Code is, because it's almost ready to launch. It's getting out there. You guys have got, some reports that are going to come out, and that's going to be, sharing to those people that are on the wait list and joining that course. Could you just give us an overview of, what you guys are building at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I gave a bit of rundown that last call, so I won't double up on that side of it, but basically trying to fill this little need in the market that keep getting requests about, of people wanting to understand what's going on in the world, financially, economically, all that kind of stuff. So me and my buddy Jeff Doherty, we've sort of had many conversations about this over the year plus that's gone past since we met each other. And the kind of parts that like the education piece is really key, I think. And I've tried to do this many times in the past, but I think the timing wasn't right. I think everything was okay in the world. It was a lot better than what things are today, and less people were getting squeezed and that kind of stuff. Whereas it's a different world now. People are feeling the pinch. So there's a lot more requests to figure out what's going on. I need to make some money on the side. Prices are going up faster than my wage is going up, even if it's going up at all. But even if it is going up, prices are going up faster. So everyone's feeling that pinch. So we're putting together a community platform that's going to have some education courses, some AI analysis tools as well that we've kind of pre-programmed to make it easier for people to analyze things without having to think about, oh shit, well, what do I say? That was, you know, I think we've all been through that with AI, right? Like I got frustrated in my early times of using it, but the problem was me in the beginning. You know, I wasn't actually giving it the right prompts that I needed. So, yeah, feel like kicking it sometimes. But what do you kick? So that, as well as we're putting out some weekly reports, which you mentioned. So trying to give people a bit of an idea without getting too technical about what's happening in the world. What are the things that are actually moving the prices of things? So whether that's the stuff that they're buying every day, what's moving the stock market, what's moving the currencies, what's moving petrol prices, like all that sort of stuff. Because most of the time it sort of happens, and I think the corporate media has had a really bad track record of just kind of like not pre-warning anybody to anything, even though they should if they're experts. You know, especially the finance gurus see these things coming and actually warn people. That I believe they kind of do the opposite most of the time. We want to try and help give that education to people so they can actually look around and, you know, see what's coming. You know, if later this week oil prices at the pump, the petrol prices at the pump, you know, skyrocket, it's not just because of what's happening in Iran. Like there's been other things in play as well before that lead to these things as well. There's supply and demand economics at play. So that's the basic idea of the platform. We're looking forward to getting that out. We'll be starting with the community and hopefully the first report side of things. And it's taken us a little bit longer than planned just to do the courses, but they're quite detailed courses. So we're starting with just a fundamentals course, which will break down things like terminology, even like what is an ETF. Like a lot of people hear things like what's an ETF or what's the PMI, and these terms that get thrown around on the TV and in the newspapers, but no one really kind of stops and, you know, you've got to go and seek that stuff yourself, really. So otherwise things aren't in the right context. So we're going to start from the real basics and eventually build our way up to all the way through to how to trade options and futures trading and stuff like that, getting into commodities, because there's different ways to invest in things as well. You can invest in the actual thing. You can use options on those, which we can get into later if you want, or futures trading. You can invest in the companies that actually interacting with these particular things. So there's many ways to think about, like you might have an idea, like I've had recently, you know, like I've been going long oil over the last month because I've seen stuff building up in the Middle East and whatever. So what does that mean? That means that I believe oil prices were going to go up, and it's hard to pick the exact moment that that's going to happen. But if you've got conviction in what you're doing, you can start positioning yourself that way. And there's various ways that you can do that. You could invest in oil companies. You could, buy an ETF that tracks oil. You could get futures trading on oil markets, or even options and various things. So there's a lot to take in, and we hope that the people joining the community are going to be in for the long haul, because this is going to be a multi-year journey where we're going to hopefully bring everybody up to speed about understanding the reality of the world, not what the TV and the newspapers has taught us or left out of what we should know. And then also, okay, what can you do about it now that you are feeling the pinch? You know, like I wanted to talk about inflation today, because I was even, my situation's probably been interesting because I've been living in Mexico for the majority of like the 5 years from late 2019.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like, you know, I was one of the Aussie frogs in the pot, getting slowly boiled, but then I jumped out for a few years and I was away. And since coming back, I'm back in the pot and I'm going, holy crap, like it's heating up a lot. And I'm looking around. I was in the servo the other day, just waiting to pay. And I looked down at the killer pythons. You know, I remember those things being huge, you know, and they were in a big box all mixed together. Yep. Now they're individually wrapped. They're probably about a third of the size.
Shrinkflation,
and they're 10 times the price, you know. So like inflation would say, oh, well, the price has gone up and that's all you need to worry about. But well, inflation actually should really take into account the shrinkflation as well. Like if the size of that thing's gone down by 50%, you know, that really adds, you know, another 1,000% to that price increase over that time. So trying to make people aware of these things, and also not just doom and gloom like you and I have chatted about. What can people actually do about it too?
Yeah, keen to get into that. And I think I can't remember who said it, but I heard it a while ago. That's like if the Reserve Bank is saying something, usually the opposite is true. You know, like
Mhm. Unfortunately, mate.
which is hilarious. But this is where, to me, I'm always like power to the people. Like you can't have the same intelligence that created the problem to fix it. You kind of just got to figure out these games, these larger cycles. And this is where you've shared with me a very small snapshot of what's going to be in these courses. And what I liked was, I think the big thing with me is if I can even see it and what I see makes a general level of sense, I could start putting money and then I could start to sort of understand what these fluctuations mean. But if you can't understand what it means, like I think that's where not stress, but also maybe a hesitation to put your money in starts to come from, because there's it's just straight up gambling. It's just like you don't even know the horse, you don't even know which bet it is. You're just like, I'm throwing money in the pot because of what I've heard, like you said, on the news. But like you said, if you could step back, and I know that that's what this course is going to be, there's going to be those cycles. And I think that's why you're saying commodities is great, because it's got slower cycles but they're large, and you can sort of learn from a longer historical trend, I guess. Whereas like crypto, high volatility, if you got the risk appetite, you can make money in there as well. But people have that lower risk appetite, can come into that commodities market. And so with that, I know you said the report, they're coming out, but I know you had one that was going to come out. What was going to be in that report, or what's something that currently is maybe a key point of attention that you are looking at that you're going to share?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, well, I mean, there's various big kind of macro factors. You mentioned the central banks. I guess they're really the big players in the market, so it's pretty key to watch what those guys are doing. They've been like liquidity is one metric that can be followed, like how much kind of money is circulating in the system, and those guys can pump liquidity up and they can suck liquidity out of the system as well. So in a bit of a historical context, which I think is good to do it this way so that people can understand it, we saw, like, those guys know, right, that if you pump a heap of money into a system, that there's going to be a flow-on effect of that, and prices are going to go up depending on how much you've pumped in, how quickly you've pumped in. So that's basically what we saw, right, in 2020 in response to all the lockdowns, was this huge influx of money printing all around the world. And obviously the consequences were going to be inflation, right? So they're in full denial about it. They basically told everybody when people could start to see the inflation coming, they were in denial that it even existed. When it got so bad that they couldn't deny it anymore, they admitted it was here, but they said it was just temporary, transitory. And then, then it got so out of hand. And then, okay, well, now we'll finally respond to it, like acting like, oh, we're here to save you from the problem that we ourselves actually created. So just trying to get people to understand that stuff, because the media is part of that apparatus as well. The central banks do something, the government usually, and the media, not trying to pigeonhole them all together, as there's some great politicians doing some great work and some good media pundits doing some good work. But I think overall, we've kind of seen a bit of a trend, right? That the majority, I would say, of the corporate side of things is usually trying to mislead you in different ways. So a lot of people during that time believed what they were being told, right? And they took out huge mortgages, thinking that like interest rates were going to stay low for ages, because that's what they were actually saying and promising. And then they did the exact opposite, because the inflation came that was inevitably going to come. And then they pumped interest rates up, and then now people are really feeling the squeeze on that. And while we've seen some reductions in that, heading into a commodities bull market where all of the commodities prices, which are the real things that, they make this phone that I'm talking to you on, you've got steel and like all the stuff that makes even the stuff that's in go back to AI, the stuff that's in the AI data centers and all that sort of stuff, the real things. So those things kind of get underinvested in, I guess, when there's a lot of hype with the stock market, especially technology stocks and all that kind of stuff's exciting and all the capital's going that way. Traditionally, commodities are a bit unloved, so over time, the supply dwindles down of those things, but eventually reality catches up and people realize, well, if we want AI or we want that latest iPhone, we actually need all the stuff that's going to make those things. And the demand for those starts kicking in whilst the supply has been really squeezed and prices start ramping up huge. So if we're going to we're into the next bull market of commodities right now. So I could make a strong argument that I believe energy prices are going to go up over the coming years. Therefore, inflation is going to go up over the coming years. Therefore, interest rates, mortgage rates are going to go up over the coming years. there could be some little window. I believe if there's a crisis sometime this year, and the central banks come in and respond and drop rates and pump money into the system again, there would be an opportunity there for people to potentially lock in a lower rate before things take off again, because I believe that's what they're going to do. Everything's going to take off again at that point.
And like, I think, as we said at the beginning, you know, sometimes people might hear and it's like, man, all this is just freaking me out, you know, like, it's like, what do I do? And it's just like, we will get to what we are going to do. But I think it's very hard to go straight to a solution if you don't see the problem first, right? Like, I think it's important that you got to paint that picture of like what is really going on. And I think what I love what we were talking about was just like where you're watching, where like money's actually being put, right? You get to see where people are actually hedging the bets. Like, people might say, hey, this is going to do this, but the guy that said is going to go this way, he's actually put his money over here. And like, what does that mean? And I think, like you said, this greater picture, and in terms of this greater picture, like, because even for me, obviously I learned the basics, and I think I have a general understanding when you say the liquidity enters that market, right? In terms of like cash is going back into that market. Is that like when you mean of like,
basically, yeah, not necessarily physical cash, but money is coming into the system. So yeah, liquidity is just like, yeah, that's the thing. Like with the fundamentals course that we're working on, we're going to break down all these things so that these words make sense to people, because generally if you're hearing it for the first time or the first couple of times, you're like, what is that exactly? So that's definitely going to be a focus of ours, because there's a lot of education platforms, financial ones, that you can get into out there. But I've found that majority of them already believe you're kind of already here. You've already got some level of understanding, and then they get into the more intermediate advanced stuff. So there's not a lot that will actually just break it down from the very beginning. You know, like, because I've got friends and family, and you know, they've got kids of all different ages, and even some of them, the teenage kids, want to learn this stuff. I've had conversations with people of all ages and all backgrounds and all levels of knowledge, and the majority of them are still we're struggling with some of the terminology and just the real basic stuff. So that's why we really want to focus on that, and give people the foundation, so that then the confidence, I think, will potentially take off quite fast once you get that foundation in place, because otherwise you're kind of lost. You're hearing these conversations, whether it's people you know or on the TV, or you're reading a newspaper article, and you just kind of get lost in it a bit sometimes if you don't understand the terminology. And some of that might have been deliberately set up that way, I don't know, but like, it's we need the point of reference for it to all make sense.
Yeah, and I think that's where it kind of comes down to, like, once you understand, right? Like you said, there's inflation and there's interest rates, and you know, the traditional model was, and if you're not an investor, you're not a person, like my father buys stocks here and there, but then he's not an investor. So when his stocks dipped, he then sold out. It's like, what a waste, right? He didn't understand those cycles and those trends and what it means. And I know that, like, right now crypto is down, but I look at it be like, sweet, time to get some of that, you know?
Yeah. Exactly, which is the right mentality to have, right? Like, so if you've got the understanding about what you're buying, and you've kind of got a sense that you believe what a kind of fair value might be for that thing, and it drops below that, well, there's a buying opportunity, right? Otherwise, you're going to be too emotional. You'll buy expensive and sell cheap, lose money, and then just be like, I'm just washing my hands with this thing. I can't take it. You know? So that, the education's pretty key.
And I like what you just said there. Could you maybe elaborate on like that fair value that you just mentioned? Because it seems like that's important, of like understanding, like some prices are like maybe hiked up because of this reason, and that's not a quote fair value. Like, what does that mean to you? And I guess what do you see in the world right now?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, perfect segue maybe back to commodities, I think, because like I was mentioning before, like when there's a lot of capital going into other places, often then commodities get a bit neglected and the supply dwindles, the price is dropping. So suppliers, whether it be, say, you know, coffee farmers, for example, if the coffee price is dropping, they're less incentivized to maybe grow so much. Maybe they'll switch crops or they'll do something else. And it's the same with, metals or energy. Those things really take a long time to get a mine, like go from exploration to actually pulling the stuff out of the ground to having it be ready for use, takes years and years and years. So it takes a long time to catch up. So at the moment, we've all been watching what's been happening with AI and all these companies investing hundreds of billions of dollars into data centers and energy and all that sort of stuff. So what are they going to need for that? There's going to be real demand for those things, and the supply, like I mentioned, takes a long time to catch up. It's not like they can just go, we need double the amount of copper all of a sudden that we've been using, and the market can't just go tomorrow. Okay, cool, here it is. Like, it's going to take years to catch up to that. So the price is going to get bid up in that time, and whoever wants it the most is going to pay the most for it, right? And eventually over years, then the supply catches up and it does the opposite, you know, then we got an oversupply. So that's why I think commodities is really good to understand this stuff. And then you can go and apply that same thinking to the stock market or crazy crypto markets or whatever markets that are moving faster, like they got shorter term cycles. Once you've got your head around how commodities works, it's the perfect starting point, I think. And also just the fact that it's in, you look around, I look around my house right now, you know, like it's in everything. Everything is commodities. Commodities make up our world. It's not until you sort of stop and think about that or have someone explain it to you that it really makes sense. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. People are going to want coffee, right? So if something happens to the coffee supply all of a sudden, well, yeah, we could see a huge spike in coffee prices. So if you're watching that and that's something you're interested in and you want to play that, you can. You know, most people don't know how to yet, but that's where we want to help as well. Like, okay, coffee, for example. Okay, for some reason, someone loves coffee and they're in the coffee industry or whatever, and they want to play that space. How do they do that? So that'll be some of the courses that we'll be offering.
And I think it's like just some of that, like just simple stuff. Even when you're just mentioning just then about like coffee and copper, right? Like, and this is the thing of like, even my mind, it's so simple, but if you really think about it, you gotta grow it. Right? You got to harvest it. You got to get someone to do it. You got to prep the site, you know, soil, like there's only like a certain speed you could move at to really get a plantation up and running. Or if you push the plantation back to 50% of its size to get it back to 100% or 200% of its size, that, you know, you watch a tree grow, right? As quickly as we can launch a meme coin, the tree is going to grow at that same pace, realistically. And I'm guessing that's what you mean by like commodities has that slower cycle, because whether it's, like you said, mining, or whether it's wheat, sugar, rubber, these things that are required, it's because it has, I guess, that lead time that's required.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why, like, you know, oil, I think it has been for the last few months the perfect one to be paying attention to, because it's been the most, you could argue probably the most unloved out of a lot of the commodities. You know, everyone's just calling that it's going to go even lower. There's a bunch of, you know, like easily supply disruptions can happen quite quickly in oil, like we're seeing at the moment, but also some of the, you know, OPEC nations have got a history of, like, that's basically a little cartel. No, we say cartels are bad, but this cartel exists and everyone's okay with it. They can manipulate oil prices up and down and the supply up and down and stuff like that. So there's a lot of other factors that go into this sort of analysis. But yeah, you want to be looking for things that are unloved and cheap when you're looking to buy, and you want to be selling. This is where the other probably hard part about the emotional side is. You want to be disciplined and have some kind of plan for, I'm going to sell once I get this multiple on my return, or I'm going to start edging my way out or whatever. And I'm not going to get greedy, because I'm a human and I'm capable of getting greedy, obviously. As I'm capable of getting fearful on the other side, I'm capable of getting greedy and pushing it too long and missing the exit, basically. So it's
I was going to say,
both ways.
That on a few meme coins.
I think everyone has to go there, mate. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like, because obviously over the years, my main focus for a long time was crypto, and I've taught a lot of people about it, and I've had those exact moments where I've been teaching someone about it, and the price has been down a bit, and then okay, so we'll buy some, we'll allocate some of your money now, and we'll get it all secure and all the rest of it. And then a week later, they're like freaking out. Oh, it's gone down. It's down 15%. And I'm like, awesome, right? Let's start getting some more. Yeah. And they're like, oh, shit, what do you mean? Like, I didn't think of it that way. I was getting scared to run to the exit, you know? No, it's not the way. It's just a different mentality. I mean, I had to learn it as well. We're not really born with it, all of us. So we have to learn it along the way. But yeah, we can point it out with a bit of humor is always good as well. But it happens to all of us. I think we all kind of go through we want to do exciting day trading, and we want to chase, this coin's got some potential for some crazy return in one night, or whatever the hell the story is about it. So it can happen, and that's what's so enticing. But majority of times it doesn't really happen. And then when the markets are really frothy during those sorts of times too, it's a time to be careful, because it attracts a lot of sharks. Obviously, you're up against professional traders and and banks and hedge funds and like, especially these days, like some really big traders that do this all day, every day. So if you don't know what you're doing, yeah, you can get eaten alive.
Yeah, man, I feel that. And now I kind of want to tail it off because we've got 5 minutes left. Like we could yarn for ages about this, but I know it's kind of like not hot topic or conversation, but the truth is right now there's a lot of noise around, there's like this Ukraine Russia war has been going on for ages. Like right now this whole Iran thing is like, is in everyone's Instagram reel, even if you don't look at the news, like that's happening. And they're talking about what's going on with oil. I'm not asking for like an oil prediction, but like where does like this whole war and because mate, moving so much of these military things around and getting people in and around these things, like what does this moment mean for the larger cycle? Just of
sure. Yeah, it's a good point. It's for a long time now, decades, right? We've been in this, like an era of globalization, really, like a global supply chain and open borders and free trade deals and all that kind of stuff, where that tide has kind of turned, you could argue, where we're going back now. There's countries putting up borders and US famously putting on tariffs and others responding. So that whole kind of trend is reversing a bit. So, that on its own is dangerous for supply chains. People start getting very protective of what they've got. They may not want to share it so much, or if they do share it, they're demanding higher prices for it. So again, this is another narrative that fits into the commodities bull run. You've got the conflicts, you've got the deglobalization, you've got the actual physical supply issues, you've got the demand issues, you've got all those pieces. That's what, before I'm putting some money on the line, I want to see a lot of those pieces line up and point in the same direction before I'm going to actually do something. Otherwise, like the earlier you go, the higher the risk is. And yes, there could be potential bigger returns that way, but to sort of be smart about it, you want to see a few of those things line up. And that's kind of the world where we're heading into. Good or bad, no, we kind of need to face things for what they are. So like I said, I think inflation, for those reasons, with commodities prices rising, that means the price of petrol at the pump's going to rise, your electricity bill is going to go up, your mortgage rate's going to go up unless you lock it in when you get an opportunity to. Food's going to become even more expensive. All those things are going to continue happening. And we saw a similar sort of trend through the 60s and 70s. Very volatile, lots of conflict, tariffs and all sorts of things. Vietnam War, we saw that stuff. And markets themselves were very volatile, like very crazy. So there was huge opportunities, but you had to be clever as well. So the other thing I'd probably recommend people as well, like don't try and take on everything. Maybe if you're interested in commodities and you want to come over to do one of our courses or do it on your own, maybe just pick one or two and go, I'm just going to learn about this one or two commodities and go back through history, learn about the cycles, learn the supply and demand effects, what can happen to this, what's caused price rises in the past and crashes. And then you can start applying that to others. But I mean, some people make a whole career in the investment world of, I'm the US dollar to yen trader. That's what I do all day, every day. And that's their specialty. So, you could argue that's a pretty good way to be a specialist. You're going to do pretty well in that. So I like to have a bit of a less concentrated understanding, but of more different things, like knowing that I'll never know as much as that person about that particular part of the industry, but I know enough, and I like to see how all the different pieces fit together. And so it depends on the person, what each person's wanting to do. But to be an expert in like, I'm focusing on these agricultural commodities, or I'm focusing on these energy commodities with the AI boom coming up. I'm going to focus on uranium and oil and whatever. Like pick one or two, and I think it's a great way to start.
And this will be a conversation for next time, because I know a lot of people have got their super, and we will, like even my girlfriend and I have been talking about like, well, is there like smarter ways to invest our money whilst, because obviously we've been having this conversation, but I'm having this conversation with like different people right now of like alternate ways to put your money into different places right now, as like, could you get a 4%? But like, is that actually going to keep you on top of inflation? Like, is that actually going to, retain, even if it's like you like grow your money, or like, I just want my money to be worth the same it is now in a few years time.
I don't want to go backwards. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was having this conversation today on the walk of like, I remember my dad, he made a certain amount of money back in like the 90s and 2000s. And I was like, GPT, how much is that worth now? Right. And it gives me a figure. But then, like, I think last night I was just thinking, like, but then what's the buying power of
Exactly. What
this
do I
chunk of
get?
money? Yeah, this chunk of money in the 90s and 2000s versus, yes, the quote equivalent this much money. But does that even have the same amount of buying power in this modern day? You know?
Exactly. Or when I talk about the killer pythons, you know what I mean? I can still get a killer python. Oh, but it's 60% smaller, or like it's not the same thing, you know?
Well, yeah, like houses, right? Is such an example right now. It's like, yeah, I got a house. It was far smaller than what my parents' house was, or like I got a small portion of it, which is like, hey, I'm happy we got a house, right? But it's like, yeah, what do you get out of it? So
Yeah, and I think we're allowed to question those things too. I think people should, right? We've seen what the houses our grandparents had, and big yards and plenty of space, and even like, this maybe is for another day, but like even looking at the architecture in a world, you could argue that go back a few decades that there was a lot more space, there was a lot more care, a lot more beauty put into our spaces and what we're living in, and public spaces and all that kind of stuff. You look at the Europeans and go back in time, they're like beautiful, detailed things and plenty of space for everybody and not crazy expensive. So we can get back there, but it will take a majority of us to actually want it, I think.
well, yeah, and I think that's a great place to sort of leave it for today. Is like, yeah, how much do you, I guess, want it? And it's like, it's obviously for yourself in this lifetime, but I guess if you have kids, you're looking to have kids, what's the future you want them to grow up in? And I think for me, my, big tagline is that we are the movers, not the moved, right? To try and be that. How do you become a person who actively knows? I keep saying that, like, for a long period of my life, I was playing cricket on a basketball court, right? Like, happy that I was playing cricket, but it's like, why isn't this working for me? Like, why isn't, like, I'm not getting that feedback.
Doesn't feel right. Yeah.
It doesn't feel right. Like, you just like, and whether you like it or not, it's the system we live in, right? Whether you like it or not, it's the taxes you pay. Whether you like it or not, it's, like you said, the inflation that goes up and the coffee that charges more. So, no one's going to come in and save you. No one's going to, the government's not going to, and maybe there'll be handouts, but that's part of the problem as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And as long as we're all passive in that process, we're not active in the political process, which I think most of us don't really want to be, right? But it has a massive effect on our lives every day and our children's future. So we need to get active in some way. We need to either get into this sort of stuff so that you can be financially free to have options, or get involved in the political space, whether that's locally or at a higher level. Get involved in your children's, community stuff, which a lot of people in Australia do, which is really cool. But yeah, on the financial side as well, like, look at your super. Like, a lot of people have got a lot of money parked there, and if it's just in an industry fund and we're about to have a hit, like I believe we're going to in the next, few months, you'll take a hit on that, and there was no need for it. Even if you just rang them today and said, like, oh, well, maybe we should just park it in cash for the next 6 months. Could you just do that in a no risk account, and then I'll reassess in 6 months' time or 9 months' time, or whatever it is. Like, everyone can make their own decision on that, but that's something that I would look at, because that happened to me in the GFC. That was a big part of my awakening, I think, from one report to another, losing almost 40% of my super. And where did that money go? And who was responsible for it? No, but like, those guys are masters of the universe when everything's going up, but when it goes down, it's like, oh, sorry, you guys are on your own. Nobody could have seen that coming, or we're not responsible. Don't talk to us, basically. So that will happen again. And we talk about cycles a lot at All Code. So that's a part of the cycle. Unfortunately, we are humans.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, like, history repeats itself, and trends and historical rhythms are just the way they are. And if you see it happen, because, like, even if you miss this moment, like I've missed a few other moments in the past, you just, like, if you have an awareness, to me, that's such a huge part of, like, I guess, making it through things. Because even if you take the hit, but if you're sort of a bit more aware of why that hit happened, or like why this shifted or changed, I think that always just helps me to be like, I feel personally more empowered, right? Because I'm like, okay, maybe I could try to figure this part out. Because, like you said, even in down cycles, economies shifting, you can still make money. It's just you got to know how to do it intelligently, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or at least I've got that. I've got my hands on the wheel. There is a wheel. There is. I know this is a vehicle that
The wheel
I'm
came off
not
the
just
car,
totally lost. You know, which is how it feels at times. You know, like what is going on? I'm just getting dragged on some crazy ride here, and I just want to get off.
Yeah,
Take me
yeah,
off,
yeah.
quick! I don't care if I've lost. Take me off.
Yeah, and it's ironic because the people that are taking, you know, being on the front foot of their life and having more agency, it's usually those people that will at the beginning go through roller coaster probably more, right? Like people that are just cruising and they're like, yeah, life's all sweet and settled. It's like awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm super chuffed, you know, but like I've noticed they're not usually people that are either entrepreneurs or they're trying to invest their money or they're, you know, trying to figure out alternative ways where they can put their money or how they invest their time, etc.
Yeah.
Because the people that are doing that are sort of faced, whether you like it or not, to see this huge thing that's going on. Like I just can't unsee it. And
Yeah.
like how I live my daily life is affected by it. And so, yeah, sometimes it feels like burdensome. I'm like, more knowledge, you know, but at least that gives me, you know, my agency. Right?
Well, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, truth, I think, is very important. Even though it's hard sometimes, it's better to acknowledge the truth, I think. And, yeah, maybe a good way to segue. Like I had a fortunate, like a back and forth with Michael Burry a few years ago because I reached
Really?
out to him and yeah, well, I was just,
I just watched The Big Short again with
such
my
a
girlfriend.
good time to watch it, I think, at the moment for people too.
Oh,
But
man.
I was asking him, because I was like, oh, man, it must have been obviously crazy at that time. You must have felt like you wanted to scream at times. There's that part in the movie where he's beating the drums and whatever, but you know, he's obviously very diplomatic when he's on the phone to the bankers and trying to call them out on the crap that they're doing and whatever. And I said, like, what do you do? You know, and he goes, yeah, well, look, if you as long as you've done the research and you have the conviction, it's okay. Just stay true to that, but just be prepared for the fact that while you're waiting for it to happen, you will lose your mind.
Yeah.
However, when it happens and everyone else loses their mind, you will have your wits about you. Yep. So I was like, okay, sweet. Yeah. And I feel like this is probably an interesting time for us to be talking at the moment, because I feel like I'm going through that transition at the moment. I've been betting on certain things for quite a while now that I've been waiting to come to fruition, and they're coming to fruition now. So I'm sort of in that transition of that point as well. So because I'm looking around, not everyone's losing their mind yet. I'm not quite to that point where I think I'm just like, whew, relax, cool, cash in on that, and I can, go to the beach. Not quite there yet, but that's where we're kind of coming to. And I don't want to just do that and piss off and go, sorry, everyone else, you're on your own. Like I would love to try and, hey, let's all go down to the beach together and we can all, relax a bit, and have our wealth secured at least. Like you said before, at least not going backwards because of inflation and all the rest of it. And when you having some kind of legacy to leave to our children would be nice as well. And just all the things that make us human. I think they're not unreasonable things to ask for and want, and past generations have had those. So I think we should have them too. But past generations also have had to fight for a lot of that stuff. So if you're not willing to fight and at least put in the effort, then when it doesn't happen, you've kind of only got yourself to look at in the mirror, which is a hard thing to do sometimes as well, because you're sort of like seeking like, well, hang on, who's responsible for this? And then eventually it lands back on you, right? Because we're all responsible for our own actions or lack of actions. We could have done better, So at least acknowledging that we all made mistakes in the past. Let's not keep repeating the same ones, and take it from here. So come on, you go to the website if anyone that's keen to sort of sign up now. We're going to start. Orcode. Oh yeah, you got it there. Thanks, buddy. And we'll start punching out some reports soon, at least, to start educating people, and we'll keep you up to date once the community side launches and the courses, and also the tools we're very excited about as well. So you can be able to bring your own ideas or own stocks or whatever you're wanting to analyze and punch it into our tools and get some really valuable outputs from that.
Dope.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think the last bit for me is just feels like it's just a conversation of sovereignty. It's just and like those larger and for me, as above so below is such a big principle, right? Like it's like those larger economic trends of, like you said, America is just like, hey, I'm going to sort of look after me now, and like tariff and everything, and the other countries like, well, hey, I'm going to look after me now. And the irony is, like, if you can't have your own backyard and your house in order, like on a personal level, like you said, on your family unit, like it's very hard to help and be there for other people as well. So I think this conversation of, how do you look after your money? How do you look after your time? How are you going to look after your family? Like, what is it going to be? And it doesn't have to be this directly, right? This is just a conversation of a portion of how you could do it. But I think the conversation is just about how you're doing it, like, there's, unless the divine is part of your, ideology, it's like you do need to sort of figure these things out.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Yeah, there's all the different pieces. Obviously, faith's a strong one, your own health and wellness and your community, and a lot of the blue zone ideas actually as well, leading to a healthy life. But so that, one that I've always been kind of interested in, at least since I was a kid, was kind of numbers and money and finance and that kind of stuff. So happy to help in that regard, anyone that wants to connect. And then if there's other areas that you're looking at, like for the health and wellness stuff, like go seek people that are at a kind of a higher level than where you're at, and ask them for your wisdom. Like we want to bring a lot of that into the community aspect of what we're doing too. And in future have events. We've got some big plans for events and other stuff in future, which will be, sort of bring all those pieces together, because we all know if we're not sharp health-wise, I know that my ability to do this kind of work is hampered, and my results will be poorer than they should have been, and things like that. So we need to, all those aspects are very important for sure.
Sweet, man. Well, appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on, Rory. I know, like I said, we could chat for a whole lot more, but it has been tip-top for me.
Cool, mate. Yeah, I hope it was good. Yeah. For context for the audience, I guess, like you and I have had many, several hour chats about things, which has been good, and sort of seen, hopefully maybe some other people could get some value out of this sort of stuff. So to, put a camera on the wall so they can listen into some of this stuff, and we can hopefully go deeper in future. And, as we launch a community as well, we want to get a lot of feedback on what do people want, because initially we're putting together what we believe will add the most value. But there's also going to be that aspect of like, well, hey, actually, we want some of this and this as well. We hadn't maybe thought of that. So it's a two-way street there for sure. Everyone helping each other. And if the world does keep getting a little bit more local, then we're going to need that community support, with each other. Family and community is going to be super important.
You could, that's another thing, right? You could have all the money in the world, but if you don't have people to share it with, if you don't have a, human connection in your life, like, so many studies have shown like that's where people are, the fulfilled people have good connections, or good internal wealth, right, inside of it. So
exactly.
I look forward to it.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, we can chat again, and exactly. We can talk about other stuff that people want to hear more about next time or whatever. But thanks again for what you're doing, hey, and always happy to join.
My pleasure, much appreciated. I'll speak to you next time. East Coast Insights. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Hoorah! 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 Bam! East Coast Insights. Another episode done. I love doing these live. It's just like, strangely, I'm like, well, it is going to be what it is, and all the people out there, whoever may be still watching, we'll put my YouTube links in here soon so that you can jump over to YouTube and watch the live from there as well. I believe that's where there could be some live chat that could occur. That'll be the next phase for me. And I will certainly start getting a bit of a community newsletter together. A lot of these conversations just got so much, goodness in them that I want to make sure that I can extrapolate and share that to the community. So thanks again to all of those that have come. Appreciate your time. And with that, Kenji Shimada signing out. Another episode of East Coast Insights. Have a lovely Tuesday.
From the harbor to the high rise, from the boardroom to the beeline, pull a seat for some daylight. Kenji on the headline. Hey! East Coast Insights talk that truth. Big city questions searching for proof. Stories from the ground, from the booth to the roof. East Coast Insights, hey! Right here with you. East Coast Insights talk that truth. Big city questions searching for